Hi, this is Greg Arnold with John Broughton on Retrospectives, KC Radio 97.7 FM.
Happy birthday, Helen.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about the new record, obviously. So, but firstly, I'm a bit slow to pick up on the news. I wasn't aware that you'd moved to Switzerland.
Yes, I've been there for about 4.5 years now, and
Wow.
really loving it. It's it's an incredible place to live. It's a funny state we live in, though, because you're wandering around, eyes wide open, in wonder, loving everything you see, but seeing the whole time desperately homesick as well. It's that's the life.
So what inspired the move initially?
Well, I actually moved there for my wife's work. So
okay.
She's with the International Committee of Red Cross, so she got a very significant posting there, so over we all went.
Ah. Did you have any preconceived notions on what to expect when you got over there in terms of the music side of your career?
Well, no, not really at all. It was a strange journey, though, because it really makes you appreciate. Melbourne is a big music town, really big music town. There's so many scenes are so vibrant, and you go to a town like Geneva, and it's just smaller to start with. But then the music scene is much smaller as well. So you tend to all stick together and probably cross scenes a little more. So I made this. The record here was made with an engineer. He's a great musician as well. He's a great Brazilian musician, and I spent the whole record trying to communicate through my extremely crappy French. It was really seen. So you tend to all join together in your shared pursuit, even though you're crossing a lot of scenes in the process. It's good. It's a nice scene.
Has the move influenced your writing in any way? Are you one that can be influenced by or creatively by your surroundings?
Well, absolutely, and I've got to say, I would never have thought it would be so pronounced. When I first got there, I had a strange thing. I lost my voice for a while. I could barely sing, and I hardly wrote anything for that first year I was there, and I almost got to the point of thinking, well, it looks like that's the end of that era of my life. And then suddenly we moved across town from where we'd first been living, and that was, in some ways, the real catalyst. And just then I started writing songs and ended up writing probably more songs over the last 2 years than I've ever written in any 2-year period of my life. And they're all, really, I suppose, both those things, the wonder of all the new, but then the sort of yearning for your home, they're big things. And so that shows up all over the place in the writing.
Mm. So how different do you think this record would be if you were still based here in Melbourne?
Well, entirely. I mean, one, there's a song in French, so I would never have learned to speak French unless I'd moved to a French-speaking city. So I did songs with the Red Cross Choir over there as well, and that's obviously very specific to being in Geneva, a couple of songs with the Red Cross Choir, but also so much of the lyrical content is just from that, inspiration of the new place and that reflection. So, I mean, completely different. It's been a life-changing experience, and in a really great way. And whenever something so big happens, it does tend to show up in the songs and direct the songs. I mean, I always believe songwriters are, just expressing what's going on in a real life. So, it really influences in a huge way. I can't say what the record would have been like if I'd stayed in Melbourne, but probably in Melbourne, where I was working a lot more as an academic within music before I left. Mm-hmm. I probably would have been writing quite a bit less, because that's just the nature of when you're doing something like that. So much of your energy is going into that side of still talking about music, but talking about it more and possibly doing it a little bit less. So now I'm back to doing it, full steam ahead.
So if you could place a particular theme on this record, one that reoccurs throughout the songs, what do you think it would be?
Well, I suppose they could be broken into sort of groups of three. One would be that profound feeling of the wonder of the new and the homesickness travelling together as a sort of big part of my character. I can see that across all of the songs. But then also, the general, it's a big time for sort of political stuff. So that, that's cropped back up in my writing at a level that it probably hasn't been for some time as well, largely inspired by the, current climate, of which there's lots to talk about.
Sure
and I suppose the other thing is then there's songs that are inspired by various things to do with the Red Cross Association as well, the songs I did with the Red Cross Choir. So, they would be the main three things across the album. But within that, there's also songs, I'd say, of an imaginative nature that are, just flights of imagination as well. So,
yeah.
But funnily enough, there are so many songs flying around that we're also hoping to do a New Things of Stone and Wood record, and a lot of those songs are, very linked to this same sort of era as well.
Speaking of the songs, the song "Wrap My Bones" has many a Melbourne reference within. So I guess there was a touch of homesickness in the inspiration of that song.
Absolutely. Well, what it strikes me is whenever we come home, because we've been living there for a while now, and ultimately it'll probably be about 8 years that we live there. And so while you're there, you're living a life, and it's amazing. Whenever I get out of the airport and you get out and you just smell that sort of cooked up eucalyptus leaf smell that is so Melbourne, it just takes you to that, you are home. It takes you to that big place straight away, and it's just the power of that feeling really showed up in that song. And as I said, I think of walking along the Yarra again in that song, which I'm doing as we speak, cropped up in that song as well. And all those memories, and in some ways being away really gets you to look at things as they are here. I think I would not think of myself as I would never have thought of myself particularly in the idea of being Australian in general and Melburnian in particular. But when you're overseas, you really start to look at those things and think about them.
Tell us about the studio where you recorded the album. I believe it was an unusual kind of location.
Well, it was a very unusual for everywhere else in the world, but particularly kind of regular in Switzerland. It was in an old, disused, nuclear bunker.
Wow!
Because all the properties in Switzerland have, bunkers where you traditionally you had to have them well stocked, be prepared for the nuclear, the potential for a nuclear conflict. So it was a sort of eerie but a very enjoyable way to make a record in that sort of setting. We used to have this game in Australia with the kids. We used to, what would you do in the zombie apocalypse? Where would you go? And in Melbourne, we'd have all these ideas, or in Australia, you could go there and you'd have to do this. And thing that in Switzerland, it's it's a very short game. Where would you go? Oh, downstairs. It's all set up for that.
Yeah. Hey, I've been enjoying your on the couch videos. Such a wonderful and immediate and intimate way to present your songs to your fan base. And I believe a lot of the songs from this record were actually written on that couch.
Yeah, I'm starting to think of that as the magic couch, that one. Yeah, pretty much all of the record was written on that couch, and pretty much all of the Next Things of Stone and Wood record as well. And to be honest, probably pretty much all of the record after that. It's just the second we got it, it actually looks in the direction of those videos. That's looking back into there, and from there I sit out there and look across a sort of river to the mountains. It's a very inspiring place. So I sit there on what I now, I'll have to take that with me everywhere now if I want songs. It's delivered big time. So it's actually a fun thing to sing the songs from there. I've sang a few old songs, of course, as well. But from that couch, in which I put a lot of faith in that couch now.
Yeah, don't ever sell that couch.
I know.
You mentioned you've got a song on the album sung entirely in French. My knowledge of French is absolute zero. So can you give us a bit of background on that one?
Well, it's actually homework for I'm learning French, and one of the homework things was, try writing a song or a poem in French, and I started writing it, and I had, I liked the idea behind it, so then I sort of worked out how to sing the idea behind the song in French, and then by the end, I liked it so much it ended up becoming the first video and single off the album. So, that was a pretty positive homework outcome. And it's based on one of my favourite Geneva stories, actually. I was really into this story before I'd even we'd moved to Geneva. During my university years, I was really obsessed in that sort of gothic-y, spooky 19th century stuff. And just up the road from where we live is the house where Mary Shelley conceived of the idea of Frankenstein, and on the same night, John Polidori conceived of the sort of modern idea of the vampire. And I just thought this is fantastic, spooky story. But the funny thing was, I went to the place, this villa where this all happened, where all the magic happened, and I was thinking, hopefully it'll be this spooky storms appearing above us. It's just this beautiful sunny day, and how did they think of all these monsters here? I'm not seeing it. It's but it turns out as one of those great examples of the idea of the butterfly effect, in that the reason that everyone was thinking so spookily at that particular night was because there had been no summer that year in Geneva, because a volcano had erupted in Indonesia the year before, sending clouds across the whole world and delivering no summer. And consequently, rather than going out and swanning about on the lake, they all sat around spooking each other out with ghost stories.
Wow. So how big a challenge did you find it, writing a song entirely in a foreign language?
Well, it wasn't. Once I had the idea, it's funny, you win some, you lose some with when you're doing that. Like some phrases come out really musically and really nicely, and then some, you sort of have to bend them into shape, much in the same way you do normally. But the example I think of is to say the line, "That was the year without summer in Geneva," in English. That sounds all right, but in French that is "C'était l'année sans été à Genève," and it's filled with all these rhymes. It's really musical, and I remember thinking, "Wow, that was a lucky break."
And the song came with a nice animated film clip as well. Tell us about that one.
Well, that was with maybe a guy called Oscar Galt, who'd actually been a songwriting student of mine back when I was an academic, and he's fantastic songwriting. But I'd noticed he made all these great animated clips for his band, and so I sort of told him the story and said, see what you make of this. And he did make a really charming film clip about the song, I think, and we put the translation there as well to make it make a bit more sense for the English speakers as well. So hopefully you can get the story from that.
Now, as an old-fashioned radio guy, I love seeing the picture of the old reel-to-reel tape recorder on the cover art. Is there any significance or story behind that one?
Well, I actually really like it. It's just significant in that I'm very fortunate that I've worked with Mark Lang from a band called Skipping Girl Vinegar, who just does the most exceptional artwork. And, he sort of took that idea, because I was thinking against the wheel. The original, the metaphor is, of course, an old sort of medieval torture metaphor, which I didn't think would make for a great album cover. And then I was thinking old folk water wheel, sort of folksy wooden water wheel or thing. And I always love it with Mark. He just has these great ideas that he sort of spun that against using the beautiful retro feeling of an old reel-to-reel tape recording device, which were, back in the day, that was, the tape was where it was at. And to be honest, it's never not been where it's at for me, really. I mean, I make most of my records, obviously, on Pro Tools like everybody else nowadays, but whenever I'm given the opportunity to have some tape in the frame, I love it. I think it sort of tied it back to the music, that image, and it sort of he caught some huge feeling, but I think Mark Lang is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's a nice touch indeed. A couple of songs of political leanings on the album, the title track obviously, and also Race Towards the Bottom. You're not generally known as a highly political kind of writer, so you must have been really fired up to get those two out.
Well, I think in some ways it's back to the more wildflowers and share this wine era in some ways, where, yeah, and I think it is basically... it will be the situation that fires you up. I don't sit down and set about with the intention of writing a protest song or anything like that. But sometimes just the real world invades your artistic space, and you just find yourself, that's what you're writing about. I've got to say, I think anybody in this current time, anybody's got an old acoustic guitar, it's like they should be stripped of that guitar if they are not writing protest songs at the moment. It's one of those times.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned you had the services of the International Red Cross Choir on the final two tracks. Did you envisage those songs with a choir involved, or did that sort of materialise during the recording process?
It materialised as the project went along. The first song is it's based on a series of songs that are based on the fundamental principles of the Red Cross. So it was actually a lot of fun to do that, because the first one, Blue, Green and White Ball, is very much about the fundamental principles of the Red Cross of humanity. And, and I got that written first, and had recorded that with the choir, and I was really enjoying it. I really hadn't planned to do more. But then Helen sort of set me a kind of fun challenge. She goes, well, humanity, it's a bit of a free kick to a songwriter to write a song about that. Now, I'll give you a trick. You've got to write about the unity. It's more of a, sort of governance principle of the Red Cross. And so I wrote a song, one voice about that. So I am hoping it wins this year's Grammy for a song about governance. Possibly the only song about governance. But, so that was fun, and that came out really well. That one is a real rock out. So lots of fun with the choir, and it's always really a really rewarding experience when you work with people who haven't necessarily been into studio, and for them it's like a magic universe going, and suddenly hearing themselves back on a record. It's great for everyone. It reminds me how much fun and how satisfying it is to make a record, to see it through someone else's eyes again, and just go, yeah, that's right. I remember to go into a studio was, so exciting, and to suddenly see the process of making a record, which most people don't necessarily get to do. And to put it in the context of the choir, it was a really happy, rewarding experience.
Yeah, they sound fantastic. They just suit the songs too. Yes,
and I think you can hear something of it. It's a real, sort of community-ish choir. It's got all this feeling about it, and I think you can hear that, enthusiasm and belief in the ideas and things that are flying around within the choir there. So I really enjoyed it. And every now and then they played at the launch with me in Geneva, and that too was a really fun experience. So every now and then we play the songs and a couple of other songs together. I really enjoy that.
Now, you're doing a series of shows here over the next couple of weeks. Does it have a different feel to you now doing gigs here in Australia when you're no longer living here?
Yes, it does. It's been an amazing run of shows here so far. I mean, there's the club shows, but there's also been a lot of parlour shows, and that's just fantastic. You really feel like you're really speaking with people directly, and it's been a wonderful experience. And yes, you really appreciate Australianness. That's for sure. As I said, I possibly wouldn't have thought about these things that much before we moved, but now you really soak up those gauzy vibes. It's fantastic.
The house concerts and the parlour gigs, that's a phenomenon of recent times that's really taking off. You really enjoyed those?
Absolutely loving it. Really loving it. Everyone is really unique. But what I find is there's something really magic about it, because there's something about having you as a guest in their house to play a concert is, it sort of brings something really important back to the music as well, to just go, this is feels like the sort of old folk highway or something to me, in a really nice way, where it's a bit of a network functioning independently of the whole industry and everything. It's just really, really direct and honest. It feels it's fantastic. And I've got to say, I've done a few of these in Europe, but I haven't done so many in Australia before, so I'm really, really enjoying it. And there is definitely, I can see why it has seemed to have hit a bit of a nerve here.
Mm.
And from the artist's perspective, it's just this incredibly soulful experience. So
Yeah.
I love it.
You're also doing a one-off show with Things of Stone and Wood as well over in Perth.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So always fun to get together with the band. I mean, I just love the band. So any chance we get to play together, it's really fun. And because we've been together for so long, it's quite bizarre. Like, for example, last time I got off the plane and sort of had a sleep, woke up, did an interview, and then got on stage. And it was when we were doing the Yearning tour from start to finish.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so funny. We didn't rehearse at all. So we basically were halfway through the gig, and I was glad to say, good, this was a good idea. Because it would have been, we got no chance to check whether it was a good idea or not before we did it. And no, it was fantastic. But I mean, they're an incredible band, Things of Stone and Wood, so just to be a part of it's always great. And it's, coming up to 30 years of the band next year.
Well, yeah, it is too. Goodness me. Will the band
Scary,
will the band take on any of the songs from Against the Wheel in that show, or you get to stick to their own catalogue?
Not Against the Wheel, but probably a few new songs. I mean, I always admire bands that I notice when I see bands in a similar situation to us. I always really admire a band that is doing new material. So we're doing some new material as well, and of course revisiting the songs that are such a joy to play with that band from back in the day and across the whole career. But we're hoping to do some recording soon. So with that will come a lot of new songs to the set.
Fantastic. And just before I let you go, Greg, what's happening after you finish your stint here in Australia with in terms of promoting the new record?
Well, so I did a launch in Geneva, then it's around Australia, then I'm doing a run in Germany in January, and then probably the UK later in the year after that, maybe back to France a bit for a couple of shows. And my the guy who I made the record with, he's actually moved back to Brazil, so I'm probably pretty keen to get over to Brazil at some stage as well, if that can work, and do a few shows there as well. And then that'll feel like it's been on quite the journey, the album.
Sure has. Yeah, busy times and lots of travel. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Greg, thank you so much for your time. It's been fantastic catching up with you again. Congratulations on the new record. It's always great to hear a new batch of songs from you. And by the sounds of it, there's still quite a few in the works.
Indeed, there are. So yes, hopefully we'll be having this same conversation about a new record for Things of Stone and Wood next year.
Looking forward to it. Fantastic.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot, Greg. All the best.
Thanks a lot, John. Thanks for having me. Good one.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.